you all for ever, but wanted to have just one more session to talk about bad employees and to talk about my tips for you all for when you interview for jobs, if you choose to interview for administrative jobs. There are some people that get their administrative degree and choose not to interview for jobs, which is completely your choice. I have several that teach for me that do not intend to get an administrative job, but they have their degree. So again, that is completely your choice. I always said that you couldn't pay me enough to be an administrator, and here I am, 10th year as a principal and 16th year as an administrator. So they still can't pay me enough, but I love it and would never think about going back into a middle school classroom to teach. So just as a reminder, if you guys have anything that's due to me for the class, it is due by this Friday. I have to turn grades in. And because you guys are considered the quote graduating seniors, my grades are due before everybody else's. So if you owe anything to me, please turn that in. If you haven't turned in all of the things to TaskStream and received confirmation that you are done, please get on that immediately. I mean, that's really before my stuff, but because the deadline is probably already passed maybe for all that to be due.
Yesterday.
It was last night, midnight,
yeah.
Correct, Rhonda?
Yes, it was December 2nd.
Yeah, and then you'll probably get some, if you haven't submitted everything, you'll get some nice phone calls directly. Or they'll call you and say you're registered for $6.99, which you don't really want to do, which is that class to get all your licensure stuff in. And you do not need to send me anything saying that you finished all your licensure stuff. I mean, if it makes you feel better, you're welcome to send me the screenshot that says you're done, and I'll send you back a woohoo, but otherwise you don't have to send that to me. So we haven't talked since well before Thanksgiving, but we talked about like hiring practices for teachers and the benefits of that and how to effectively do that. Well, let's talk about those teachers that you either inherit or you hire that just are not cutting the mustard, for lack of a better word. Have any of you ever been involved either as like a mentor or a team teacher or even in your administrative activities working with a teacher that is struggling? Yes? Mm-hmm. So what types of things did you do or did you see the administrators do?
Well, for me, I'll start. Like sometimes having classroom management, working with them with classroom management, giving them strategies, having them go observe other teachers.
When they observe other teachers, do you have them do or some reflection or some takeaways?
And they reflect on it, and then they go back and they continue to have different meetings, dialogue with the principal as they give them different things to work on.
Yep. You ever seen those strategies not work?
Sometimes they don't follow. Sometimes they don't follow through and do everything that all the strategies the way they intended for them to do.
Yeah.
Like it's coming with practice and try it again.
Which may be why they're struggling anyways.
Right. And then sometimes they'll try to get other colleagues to talk to them and see can they touch base with them as well.
So really the reality is you can't ignore bad teachers. I always have to ask myself, would I want my nephews in that classroom? And if the answer is no, then I need to do something about it. If I've hired them, I need to do something about it. If I've inherited them, then I need to do something about it. No matter what, I need to do something about it. Because the reality is you would love to say that there's a magic formula to hire fantastic, perfect teachers, but that doesn't happen. Sometimes you have those teachers that are really good teachers that make a bad decision and it's situational based. And then you have some teachers that just struggle with poor classroom management, lesson planning, different things. So you should always document. I have plenty of colleagues that will just kind of ignore and wait until the employee becomes, let's say I have some colleagues that decide that they're just going to make life difficult for that employee and have them quit. Well, that's one aspect, but if you're making life difficult for that employee, they could come back and say that you're harassing them. They come back and say that you are treating them unfairly or just you don't want any accusations against you. So I also have this saying, and it sounds really bad, but that it's my responsibility to not pass the trash. And again, that sounds really bad, but I'm not going to just wait until they are, I'm not going to just try to push them out. I'm going to do the documentation necessary. The documentation is very time consuming. Very. Not going to lie to you. It stinks. Makes you even more ticked. Why do I have to do all of this? Why do I have to write all of this stuff? Why do I have to document all of this? Well, because you don't want to have your kid, you don't want to have your family members in that classroom. So everybody's probably heard of action plan. Heard those terms?
Yes.
They don't necessarily call it an action plan, at least not in North Carolina anymore. They call it, it's through your professional development plan. And I kind of consider it sort of like a behavior plan for kids, interventions that you put in place. You have to make sure that those interventions are a path to improvement. So if the teacher is having trouble in classroom management, you want to give them activities to do that are going to be beneficial for classroom management. And there is not a magical list of what you do. If a teacher is struggling with pacing, there's not a magical list of what you do to keep a teacher on pace for different interventions. That's where I think the relationship with your human resources department, whoever it is in your district that is that expert, other principals. I mean, I have called other principals and said, look, I've got this teacher. I just don't know what to do. And try to get different ideas and suggestions. You want to make sure that they are measurable, that you can measure whether they can do it and can't do it. You don't necessarily want to set them up for this is going to be practically impossible to do, because again, if you were ever in front of like a board hearing, which is where that can eventually go, you want to make it seem like you were giving them very practical, here are the reasons why, here's the impact, interventions. And I actually have for you that I will share out different, I got to remember, where do I go? Some different plans that I have used in the past. So here is under the old TPAI. Can you guys see that? Did I do that correctly, that screen share?
Yeah.
Okay, this is under the old TPAI. Now in North Carolina, you know, that was before we had the 6 standards. But this was an exceptional children's teacher, and it really is like a SMART goal, the indicators, what you're going to have them do, and the evidence and timeline. And just remember, even just, I really compare it to like a behavior plan for a kid. You've got to review it. I have more here, hold on, that are written in the new way, the new, here you go, 6th grade math science teacher. We do like to involve mentors if possible. So this was written under the new North Carolina professional teaching standards. And so you always have to link it to an area of the observation. Is that sharing out? There we go. There you go. You do have to link it to an area of the observation. So some people call it a SMART goal. Activities and actions. Now, one thing that I love to have teachers do is to record themselves. And you can't use a recording of a lesson as an evaluative measure, but you can use it for teacher reflection. So what I love is I love to have teachers record their classroom. They get to choose whatever classroom they want. They get to choose which day, they get to choose whatever. Then either the teacher and myself will sit and watch it together, or the teacher will watch it and then I will watch it. Now let's talk about time consuming. If a class is 90 minutes, you're gonna be watching for 90 minutes. But the idea is to, yes, I'd send teachers to go observe other teachers, but they always have the excuse of, well, those weren't my kids. And this is a way that you can actually sit with the teacher, have them watch what they're doing. And with this teacher particularly, it was eye-opening. The first time he watched himself, he started to cry. And I felt badly making this man cry, but he said, I didn't realize it was as bad as it is. Yep, it's pretty bad. What he did the second time he recorded his class, at my encouragement, he taught 2 subjects, but it was 2 different groups of kids. This was at the middle school level. One class, really good behavior, and he was able his behaviors were very different in that class compared to the other class. So I told him to record the first 30 minutes of each class. And then we watched the pacing. We watched his movement within the room. In the class that didn't have behavior problems, he moved all throughout the room. In the class that did, he didn't move past the first row, which was kind of weird. Like, why wouldn't you move past the first row? And of course, after each video session, we would come up with 1 or 2 areas that the teacher would work on. This teacher had issues with even knowing the content, so he met with the curriculum facilitator and the instructional coach. So I will share out these activities with you. Let's talk about, that teacher that just never comes to school? You ever have a colleague that you think, oh my gosh, what? Where are they? Are they allergic to work? Do they not come? Well, I have unfortunately had that, and I worked with my human resources to come up with a letter that was just a letter of concern that this is real life. I just took out the identifying information and the dates. But this teacher had missed. Now, I think I gave this to the teacher like in February, had missed all of these days. And reminded them of of some other things that they weren't doing. And also, whenever you do a letter, you want to include board policy, if at all possible. That can be, a one-time incident. It could be, the example here is for an attendance letter. And then my district also came up with what they call an ADA absence letter, which this basically is for attendance, saying if you have a medical condition, so this was given to the same teacher, then they have the ability to basically turn in information that says that they have an impairment that does not allow them to come to their job and that they need some accommodations based under the ADA. That usually shuts up teachers because they typically don't have a problem. They are, one of them I gave this letter to, her boyfriend had tickets to the Panthers game, so she missed every Monday that there was a home Panthers game. Well, that's pretty obvious. So sometimes it may not be in like an action plan. It may be in a letter. And remember, we don't always have to deal with just teachers. And again, I will share all of these out. Here is a bus driver letter where the bus driver was not following some expectations. And again, you really need to put board policy in there because that gives you backup. And what we also did with this bus driver is we came up with bus expectations. So that you don't see the bus expectations?
No, we just see a picture of you.
Okay.
And
Just
that.
me? Can you guys see it now? We try to give some preemptive information. So for those classified employees, their job description is very limited and it's very vague. I don't want to say limited, it's very vague. And so it doesn't give school specific things. So here we are having issues with our lead bus driver. So we gave some very specific lead bus driver expectations for our school. And then we reviewed it and came up with some different issues. Sadly to say, the lead bus driver was found on tape sitting on the bus with the bus on for 25 minutes, I think it was, on a personal phone call using the school provided cell phone. So she ended up being terminated. Now I don't come up with any of those by myself. Usually I communicate with my human resources department, but human resources won't do it for you. They won't hand you the interventions and say, here, give this to them. You've got to have that conversation as an administrator. What I always tell the teachers, especially when we're doing some professional development activities before it turns into an action plan, is that if they do not comply with these activities, it will be the path to having them lose their license or having them lose their job, or both. You don't want to scare them at the beginning, but you do want to make it very clear. Look, we're sensing some issues, so this is why we're putting this in place. If you do these things, then you will successfully come off of it. And if we see some evidence of that in your classroom. But if you don't do these activities, then this could lead to you losing your job. And that gives them a little more meat, a little more, oh crap. But sadly enough, I've only had one person actually come away from actually successfully complete their different interventions, which is unfortunate. Other experiences that anybody's had? Any questions that anybody has about that?
I got a question. I know
Yeah.
a lot of times on, especially as a new teacher, you look to go to another school or come into a school, and the question is always, have you been on an action plan?
Mm-hmm.
Do you view that as an automatic out, or do you kind of look at what kind of plan they were on?
It definitely gives me great hesitation. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. If they mark on their application, and I have other applicants that seem pretty good, if they mark on there, yes, I've been on an action plan, which you have to mark on there. Otherwise, if the district finds out after hire that you did not mark that, that's falsifying your employment papers. I usually don't look twice. And the reason behind that is, some people will say it's a personality conflict, it's whatever. If somebody is already documented, hey, they're struggling, I'm gonna hesitate. Just like if they mark that they've been suspended. Now, I don't believe in lessening your expectations when it comes to hiring, so I usually will just sit with a vacancy. What absolutely unnerves me, and I've had it occur in my own district, is in in Gaston County at least, if you lose a teaching position and you have to RIF somebody, if they've been on an action plan, they cannot be rifted, even though they may have been the last hire. And I've had colleagues of mine who have been working with a teacher and even with human resources knowledge, have said, oh, they successfully completed this action plan and have it go away so that they could then RIF them. And then they're placed in my building. And one of the worst individuals I've ever seen work with kids was on an action plan. The principal got rid of it. They were rifted. I actually had interviewed her two other times for a position. It didn't hire her either time. And it was horrific. It was really, really, really bad. So to answer your question, yes, it gives me great hesitation. Doesn't matter the reason why. Usually makes me just not even look that direction. Anybody have any questions, comments? We can talk about it. Go ahead.
I was looking at your first paper you had. Was there a PDP, a professional development plan that you chose what you wanted the teacher to work on?
Yes, and it was under the old TPAI evaluation instrument in North Carolina.
Okay.
So it's in a different form, and I will email those out to everybody, so you at least have some examples. Okay.
I know usually they'll tell you to choose your own, but sometimes the principal do choose what they want them to work on. Right.
So the way the current system is in North Carolina, your professional development plan should be your own choosing, or unless there is a school-wide focus. But if I say, okay, I'm going to put some goals in there, it automatically becomes, and there are different levels, directed plan, I think is the first level. No, monitored is the first, and then directed. And those are the different, monitored is the first one, then directed is the next one, and then mandated, I think, is the last one. I've never had to do one of those mandated. That's where it's like a 60-day time period, and there are some structured observations. There are specific ways that you go on a monitored. It could be based on one incident. It could be based on receiving not demonstrated or developing on a formal observation.
Okay.
So otherwise I let the teachers choose. But when I put them on a plan, I choose.
Okay.
And then I meet and go over it with them and let them know why they're going on the plan, what the expectation is when we're going to review it, which is every 30 days. When I say it's a lot of work, I'm not going to lie to you, it's a lot of work. There was one year I had 4 teachers on plans. It about killed me. That's all I was doing was monitoring plans. But they were really ineffective employees, and I needed to do that. The one that I showed you that was on the new North Carolina evaluation instrument, I would find him under his desk hiding from the kids.
Mm.
What?
These are 6th graders, you know. I had a teacher, I didn't put her on a plan. I helped her choose to go on medical leave during the opening work days. They had some professional development off campus, and principals were basically told, don't go. And so all of a sudden, about 1 o'clock, I get a text from a whole bunch of teachers from my building that says that she just showed up and that she seemed completely out of it. And so one of the teachers is a good friend of hers. And so I told her, you need to drive her over to school now, or I will come there. Do not let her drive. Do not let her leave. And she had some mental health issues going on that she had been honest with me about. I didn't realize that over the summer it had become really bad. The woman had driven around for like 5 hours, had no idea where she had gone, had just no idea. We don't know if she mixed up medication, whatever. So at my encouragement, she had her, the doctor that prescribed certain medication write her out for medical leave. And that was very difficult to do. But I mean, I just flat out said to her, look, either I can put you out because you are having irrational actions and I don't trust you to be around kids, or you can do this the way that's going to best benefit you. And it was better for her to take leave than for me to put her on leave, because the leave that I would put her on would be on suspension for lack of being able to do her job. Now, I can't necessarily suspend. I have to get human resources involved, but trust me, I had human resources on speed dial. Good.
I hear you say documentation. That's some things that I've seen since I'm doing internship. Everybody keeping a tablet and document everything, date, time, so they can flip back through. Because you do so much, you might forget, but you got your notes.
Yes. My brother is an attorney, and he calls it a chronology of events. And I create one of those almost immediately when I realize, ruh-roh, there's some problems. And I usually do a Google Drive document, and it usually, I put a table in there that just has date, what type of communication, to, from, and the topic. And then keep a folder. Now I have in my office, I have a filing cabinet that has like the internal school personnel folders, which is not the official personnel folders. Those are human resources. But then I keep in a drawer down by my bottom right drawer that has the black label folders. The other ones are green label because we're green and white. And those are I have concern. I'm going to start keeping, I had a human resources director that called them notes to file. And so those were my notes to file when I started to have one too many parent complaints. When I had one too many concerns of students saying that the teacher was not in the classroom during the class or was falling asleep during the class. When I had issues with them being out too much. Absolutely, notes to file. You can never go back and recreate the documentation. So it's very unfortunate that a lot of my job during the day is taking parent concerns, and when the parent concerns are about a specific teacher, I'll put the teacher on there, I'll highlight it, and I won't necessarily put it in that teacher's internal folder. But if I start to have continuous parent concerns, I'll then pull out all of those notes from when I spoke with parents, and we'll put it in the teacher's folder, their internal folder. So, it's one of those, when is the right time? As soon as your gut says, this is not okay. Some of that is to cover your backside in case the teacher makes some irrational decision, and all of a sudden you need to prove that you were trying to do everything you can, or that you did things, you put some things in place or communicated with the teacher. At my previous school, I did have a teacher that had some great concerns about possible inappropriate communication with a student. And, I always say I'm too cute for jail. I don't look good in that color orange, and stripes don't suit me. So I started to document conversations and some concerns that other staff members expressed. And that's where, when a staff member comes in and says, can I talk to you off the record? Just like with any type of reporter, there is no off the record. Because if they tell you something that you have to report, then it is not off the record. And so I will say, I appreciate it, but you understand that whatever you tell me, depending on what it is, cannot be off the record. Some teachers will turn around and walk away. That's when I follow them and strongly encourage them to let me know. So, and the unfortunate thing is that teacher, in my mind, absolutely was doing some things that they should not be doing. And the police were involved, and the police didn't necessarily do everything that they should have done. And after 90 days, because in North Carolina, an employee can only stay on paid leave for up to 90 days at the end of, and that's calendar days, at the end of 90 calendar days, you either have to turn it over to unpaid leave, and you have to have cause for that, or you have to bring them back to work. And so this person was able to come back to work and is still teaching there. And I received some phone calls this fall, so 2 years later, with some concern from some of the employees there, that I immediately turned straight over to Human Resources, that the teacher may be back to their not so good decisions. All right, I see that we have 6 minutes left. I'm going to share this with you also, but can you guys see assistant principal interview questions?
Not yet.
Oh.
Right. Not yet.
Uh-oh.
You have to click out of the box again.
Oh, crap. There you go. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. These are the questions that I use when I interview for assistant principals. Some of you may apply for dean of students. So
That's what I'm more interested in.
this is what I use for dean of student questions. And sometimes, you know, the county or the district may have their own questions. They may have their own thoughts. Here are my kind of basic tips. You need to know the initiatives of the district that you are applying. You know, if they're really big on professional learning communities, you better know professional learning communities forwards, backwards, all around. If they're really big on data-driven decision-making, you better know about data-driven decision-making. You need to know what the initiatives are that the district that you are applying in, they're really passionate about. You need to know the current trends in education. You know, you need to know about that Every Student Will Succeed Act. You need to know about, if it's a Title I school, you need to know a little bit about Title I. You need to know about some current trends just in education. Hopefully you have learned everything you want to know from Gardner Webb, but if not, you need to find that out. I say this, and some of you may chuckle, you need to wear a suit. You need to wear a suit. Women, that suit can be, you know, I look like my mom in a suit. So it doesn't have to be, you know, that stuffy one button suit jacket. It needs to fit your personality. But I have had people come in for administrative jobs that are in khakis and a polo shirt. You need to dress like you want the boss's job. So you need to go in a suit. You need to have your stuffy interview suit. I once had somebody say that you need to have only, if you have multiple earring holes, you only need to have one in each. And you need to be careful how many rings you have. If you're married, you wear you need to have one ring per hand or less. And go ahead.
I said you need to make sure you limit your makeup.
Yeah.
All those things matter. Even your hair. You don't want to go in with blue and purple and green hair. All of those great things. I'm teaching my students how to dress for success.
Yeah. And I mean, you need to be you. I mean, I have an assistant principal who's fantastic that has a ton of tattoos. So, and they are very visible. And, you know, that doesn't necessarily bother me. It doesn't necessarily bother some of my colleagues. It does bother some parents, but you know what? That's just the reality. So one of my best friends has tattoos that are visible on her arms. And, you know, when she goes for a job interview, she wears tattoo sleeves to cover them up, or long sleeves. And, you know, find me a 20-something-year-old that doesn't have some sort of tattoo. I mean, seriously, they all have them. So if you have tattoos, no big deal. You may want to dress very conservatively, but don't be something other than what you are, because you don't want to get the job and then show up with, you know, 25 earrings in. You don't want to have that conversation once you get the job. You need to walk in with confidence. And if you are a person that tends to not have confidence, you better walk in with confidence. You better practice confidence, have somebody coach you on confidence. But confidence and cocky are two distinctly different things. Confidence is having your head up. Sorry, ladies, put your shoulders back, kind of speaking very emphatically, not saying, well, take a pregnant pause and then answer the question or speak. If you are not going to apply for a job this year, you need to continue to include yourself in any type of administrative activities or leadership activities you can, okay? If that is what you want to do down the road. What questions do you have? And I will be here at the next Zoom session because I don't want to cut this one short if you want to talk about interview stuff. How many of you are planning on going for an administrative job?
I'm interested in Dean of Students.
Dean of Students? And you need to find out in your district what is a Dean of Students because every district is a little different.
Right.
Anybody already in an administrative role? I didn't think so, based on the ones on today. So, you know, right now my county has sent out the information. So you need to heed the deadlines as well if you want to apply for an administrative role. If you want to talk more about interviews, I'll be on the next Zoom session that I sent out, and we'll be happy to talk to you. Otherwise, if I don't see you guys, congratulations. Yay, you're done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
If there's anything I can do to help, let me know.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.